I'm Lauren.
And I'm Annie.
Welcome to Burf Barf.
Oh. You know,
what?
It's important to recognize again and again, we're in person. Again.
Once more, we're physically in the same space, enjoying each other's company. I just walked into your house and told your daughter that we should remember those dumb times, those dumb 13 months that we couldn't be in the same house together, and enjoy the times where we are now.
Yep.
Yay.
Yep.
You'll be happy to know that you'll find me in the same condition that you found me 2 mornings ago at about 7 a.m. when I was in a state of full and incredible delirium. I am pretty close to almost exactly feeling that way.
Same.
I just chugged a whole Monster. Let's do a real quick what's in your drink.
Yeah.
I've got the Monster Energy Zero Ultra, which is intense poison, but they had no bang.
And I am at 5:15 p.m. Eastern Time having, I'm going to call it green caffeinated Mio, or what I like to call Ecto Cooler.
That's some classy stuff.
This is also poison. It's in a liter mason jar to make it worse.
Yum.
But it's got bubbles in it, Soda Stream.
Yeah, it's all good. All right, so that's a real quick what's in your drink. I'd also like to kick us off with welcoming. This is just the most apt situation here. We are welcoming our most recent Patreon, the dear and beloved.
And real quick, before you say that.
Oh.
For any of you new to this podcast who are just listening as adventure racers who did 2 rivers and you're coming to listen to Burf Barf for the first time because of you ran the race and you want to hear it, or you met us this weekend or whatever, our episodes are all explicit. So I just want to point that out first, because
an excellent point.
Because
this is a good reminder.
Because our newest Patreon is
Abby
motherfucking Perkins. I feel like I need to put it out there that way.
Mm-hmm. There is no better way to say it.
Abby's a badass, a hero.
Oh my God.
A Women of Air mentor.
Such a chill lady who is also juggling a million things at once, and also who touched my heart very deeply this past weekend during a 36-hour adventure race, managed to bring me a cupcake with a birthday candle in it in literally the middle of the night. So, wow.
Yeah. And also answered my question about how Lauren and I were going to get to the race start without having 2 vehicles, as most of the other teams needed to do, and we weren't able to accomplish. She answered my question about that by saying, "Let me check my spreadsheet, and I'll get back to you."
Nothing gives Annie a bigger lady boner in the entire world than a woman having a spreadsheet and knowing how to use it.
This whole episode is about Abby Perkins.
Spoiler alert.
I hope you're listening to this episode on a run, Abby, and you're blushing in public and no one knows why. Or laughing.
Me
whichever.
too. Me too. Really, what a glorious human. So welcome.
Yeah, we've got so much to get to, so
we gotta stop.
Get into it.
Yeah, we gotta stop dicking around because we have 35-ish packed hours of literal, very essence of adventure.
Yes.
Limit experience adventure.
So Burf Barf Racing. We'll start calling ourselves Burf Barf Racing. Lauren and I did the 2 Rivers 36-hour adventure race this last weekend, just 2 days ago, essentially. This may be one of the top contenders for the closest to
we
recorded to the race. So we'll see how this goes.
It's not only fresh in our minds, but fresh in our bones and our flesh and
my feet and my pits.
And I can actually see my toenail about to come off now. Yeah, it's good.
So it was held in northern.
It was hell.
It
was hell.
And held in northern central Pennsylvania, in the Morris, Pennsylvania area, near the Endless Mountains, which I think is a dope
it's a pretty epic name for an area.
Wilds.
Yeah.
Dope.
All excellent names.
Just dope. And I don't even know
where we begin. Well, let's do a real brief. We got to stay in a giant farmhouse with a bunch of other adventure racers, and post-COVID, that's actually unusual and thrilling to be around people eat food around them, hang out, talk about look at some maps and talk about the early stages of the race together.
Also, this is our 4th adventure race. We're still super noobs. So
Yeah,
it's
we're
really
still
cool to
babies.
hang out with experienced racers. And I'm just the morning of the race, I was looking at people's tights. I was like, what do other people wear on the bottom that are really fast?
We're just taking notes on the gear that we need to buy for the next year.
Yeah.
Every time we look at anybody else, even them unpacking their breakfast bag, I'm like, oh, okay, I need that. I got that. I need that.
We need to bring our Jetboil next time.
Yeah, we definitely do.
For breakfast and
Definitely.
for coffee during the race, which was an idea that Stephanie Ross and Karen Clark, team Flying Squirrel, had to have hot coffee during the event, and we're gonna steal it.
Did we really would have benefited from that.
Anytime we think we're the most pro, we're just not.
We're just a couple steps behind.
Yeah.
So we were stoked to be there with 43 other teams. I got some good sleep. Annie, not so much.
And the day that we checked in was pouring.
It was really kind of soul crushing.
And we anticipated that it would be rainy and cold for the whole weekend.
Yeah.
And luckily
it didn't do that.
we were exactly right.
No, it did not. It rained almost not at all.
Yes. But
for the whole race.
But we were wet the entire
We were
race.
wet and cold. So let's start at the very beginning, which is we began at a campground for the prologue.
Yes.
And I was a big old baby and will never do this again, mark my words, and refused to split off from Annie. And this is, why a prologue works. The benefit of a prologue in an adventure race is to shotgun spray out people into the woods
so that you don't have bottlenecks. You don't have everybody trying to cram into a single track at the same time like you do oftentimes in an ultra, or you don't have people all trying to get on their bikes at the same time. The prologue really should just be a thing in every race. Honestly.
Yeah, in every discipline. I agree.
Yeah.
So I should have sprung off from Annie and trusted my nav skills, but in the beginning of a race, you're just a little tweaked. So we didn't do that. We stayed together. We got all 3 CPs pretty quick.
Yep, and those were all mandatory. We were the last ones. We were the last ones out of the prologue, and we were like, you know what?
That's fine.
This is okay. And honestly, it didn't feel that stressful.
It didn't.
We've been in that position so often of not, and just to be clear, not kind of the last ones. We were the last ones out of the prologue.
Yeah.
It was okay.
Yeah, that doesn't stress us because we see the wisdom of knowing to start slowly and then pick people off. Unfortunately, that didn't really happen for a whole day.
So let's see. It was a 36-hour race. So yeah, hour 30.
Yeah, it was about when we started seeing people again. So I would say as much fun as we had, it was a little bit of a lonely race because it was so strung out. There were so many people so far apart that we really didn't see people for a very long time. But it was very much a run your own race, run your own pace kind of race because there was no cutoffs. There was just, here's the mandatory checkpoints. And even then, you could miss mandatories and you would just be ranked behind other teams that did get all the mandatories. It was essentially, you're going to start here, 36 hours from now, you need to be there. And we can't really emphasize how much we love that.
Yeah.
That's great because it really opens it up. I know that there was one team for whom it was their very first time ever. I think their team name was It's Our First Time, Be Gentle With Us, which was a couple dudes from somewhere near Pittsburgh. And we would like to say, my dudes, big ups to you two for wearing canvas rucksacks for 36 hours and finishing this race because boy oh boy, we cannot imagine that special fresh hell that you endured.
Yeah. So we began after the prologue getting our 3 checkpoints with pretty moderate nav, and stage 1 we had gotten our maps the night before, so we knew what was coming. Was coming for us in quick fashion. So stage 1 was a 12-mile trek with approximately 9 miles of it being a creek walk.
Let's call it a river walk.
What do you mean by a creek walk, Annie? Oh, I mean that the course
was in the river.
Was walking the river.
Yeah, someone called it Midwestern coasteering, which I think is right on the money.
Hey, we have diversity in terrain in the Midwest as well.
Yeah, sure we do. So the very evil genius of the race, Brent, one of the race directors, was that he put 17 checkpoints in the water. And so if you got up out, and because if you looked at it, it was parallel to a road. So it would have been easy to hop up to a road, run some miles, try to aim off from, some kind of feature and then pop back down. That was not a possibility for you if you wanted all of those mandatory CPs. So
it was a good way to get people to experience the Rock Run
wet.
River in its fullness.
Cold and wet.
And it was very fun and novel until
it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we did some really cool stuff. So because it had rained a lot on Friday, the river was definitely flowing and
icy, slippery, covered just mossy rocks, and then also just there would be impassable spots on the left. So cross deep through to the right. Oh, another impassable spot. Let's cross deep to the left. We both got our own sticks, which we named Hot Stick and Tall Boy.
Yep.
And then Hot Stick 2 came along eventually because Hot Stick 1 died.
Yeah.
We developed very close personal relationships. When you hike an entire business day through a river, you get to be really close friends.
You get really close with your sticks.
With your stick.
Yeah.
You're good friends with your stick, which we could not have done it without it. But we were like making a point of contact in the water. Someone would stand in the middle of the river and then basically fling one of the other teammates to the other side, and then the other teammate would pull the other person in. We were doing some moderately dangerous maneuvers.
Did we mention we had to wear bike helmets?
Oh, and thank God this was mandatory gear, because I would say with about 3 or 4 miles to go in the river walk, I went ass over teacups and slipped down on my ass, and then I sprung my head into the ground, just whipped it like a car crash.
It did crack pretty well.
You could hear it. So
as a paranoid side safety check, have you checked your helmets for your helmet?
I did. Cracks? I checked my helmet for cracks because
cool.
I know about crashes. I've had a few, and I've ruined some $350 helmets, which is like, okay, you did the job you were supposed to do, but what a bummer to throw you away.
Ouch, yeah.
So yeah, I have no cracks in the helmet, but I went down pretty solidly, so that kind of shook my stability.
But we should say, so the creek walk ended up being a blend of things that probably, and it's you and me, we can be super candid. I don't think anything knocked my confidence down, but river walks for you are a tenuous thing.
There's something they really freak me out.
Yeah, so there were a few things that took your confidence down, but there were things that took both of our confidence up. So we got to a section that there was a team in front of us that turned back to come at us, and they were like, yeah, it's too deep. The water's too deep to continue to go that way. And we were like, no, yeah, we're going to need to see that ourselves.
We're going to need to look at that. We're going to have the eyes on that feature.
So we got to the checkpoint and we were like, we're going to keep going.
We're going to walk through that.
Yep. So we kept going and pushed through the water.
We did give me that moment where I don't know if this happens to you reflexively, but my body goes, if cold water comes up above my butt crack.
Sure.
It's like when somebody throws you on the ground and all the wind comes out of your lungs. That definitely happened to me.
Yeah. Again, for people new to Birth Barf, we talk about our vaginas too.
Oh yeah.
So just
heads up.
If you have delicate ears, I don't know what to tell
I don't know if this is for you.
Vaginas exist.
I don't know if you run ARs or ultras.
I can't imagine being delicate.
I can't imagine you're delicate about anything.
This is true. So my vagine went into water a lot and often.
Yeah, and we were like, we're not going crotch deep in any of this. It's too cold. And then we saw the CP and we're like, oh fuck yeah, we're going right in there. Uh-huh. So we popped out the other side and had just gotten that CP, and we saw our boys, the Ruckers, ahead of us. And we decided, in the spirit of AR, because people are just so quick to give you a leg up, we were like, my dudes, the CP is behind you and it's in about, waist deep water. And they were like, oh shit. And they went back and got it.
Yeah, which admittedly, I don't imagine that it was easier to. I don't think they missed any of the fun, because I think it would have been harder to get the CP from the front going upriver than going down the river the way that we did.
Yeah. So that gave us a small boost that we were like, yeah, we're bad as hell.
Yeah. Rock hard pussies.
Yeah, and then it got worse.
Yeah, and I mean, really, I feel like a good 6 miles of it were kind of neat, honestly. It was the last 2 miles, which can consider that 2 miles was like an hour and a half.
An hour and a half, yeah.
Towards the end.
There were just parts where you stop and stand and be like, I don't know which way to go.
Which way we're supposed to go. And like, the water was pretty deep in the middle. But yeah, and you might disagree with me. In fact, I would go so far as to say you're definitely going to disagree with me. I did think the creek walk was cool.
No, I don't disagree with you.
Okay.
No,
cool.
I think it's interesting. I think if I had shoes that I felt more comfortable not falling down in, I felt I felt like you did, like a badass who was navigating a course that was technical, and I feel like that's one of our skills.
Absolutely.
But no, I didn't hate it. I hated it once I started falling down over and over again.
Yeah. I also did have one pretty good fall where the bank was just like this long, wet slide of rock. And I just did this like slow slide like towards the river. I swear the bottoms of my shoe maybe like kissed the deep water where I was just like, and it was so like slow, just like, no. And then I just sat there for a minute because I was like, I still might go
Keep going in, yeah.
I don't know how I'm gonna get back up, but I got some purchase and came back up, so that's good.
Yeah. Mine were all very fast falls, just whoop, banana peel falls.
Yeah. Yeah, they were. So yeah, we got to mandatory checkpoint 8, and.
Then we should have popped up through the road like all the other adventure racers did, and we did not know to do that.
So there are things, I'm always going to be growing as a navigator, and one of the things is that I found when doing my route choices, I find my brain being like, oh, it's like connect the dots. I see a line that goes between these two dots. I'll do that.
Go there.
I'll
go
do
straight.
That instead of actively making decisions
right.
about where we're going. So I should have taken a hint from like, oh, you need your helmets from M2 to M8. Instead of getting to M8 and then being like, oh, you know what we should do? We should keep staying in the creek.
Yeah, so we did
some extra river
We did
walk.
Stay in the creek for 2 more miles, and then we just popped out into some weird marshy land behind some hillbilly houses, and we're like,
luckily we're also very practiced at that from the Barkley Fall Classic.
Yeah.
So we were like, oh,
surprise,
good.
You're in a neighborhood.
This is a terrain that we know.
Yeah,
hillbilly backyard.
Yeah, we're good at that. But that was exciting for me because I was very ready to be on a bicycle.
Yeah.
So ready to be on a bicycle.
Which is one of the beautiful things about adventure racing is just that it, like, as soon as you are really tired
done with
of
something,
doing the discipline that you're doing,
you get to
go to the next thing, and then you hate the next thing, and then you go to the next thing.
I will say, I can't forget to bring this up, which is that after the first 12 hours or 10 hours-ish of this race, I had been steady bargaining about how I was going to get out of this.
Oh, I also think you should mention, Lauren's had like food poisoning for like 5 days.
Yeah, I had a really rough week of not being able to keep food down, napping like 3 hours a day, sleeping 10 hours a night, couldn't eat anything but soup for 5 days, was just puking, had terrible fevers. I was a mess.
I have to tell you, I still have a theory that you have Giardia from the wet M&Ms.
That would be such a bummer. I don't think I have Giardia, but I will get tested for it.
All right. Cool.
So I was in the middle of, making a comeback at life when I entered this race. But
yeah.
So
you had an empty tank.
I had an empty tank. Yeah. I did. And I had not been really moving my body at all. So I was kind of like in a bad position. So I was ready to use all of those cards like, well, I've been sick. And also, I was already going to like I don't have anything to prove. We just did one of these. There's a whole summer of racing ahead of us. I
love this imagined audience who you're like screaming, I don't have anything to prove to.
Every time. Like, I don't know. I don't know who it is. I mean, I guess it's you guys. But
it always feels like it's an auditorium full of people. It's just you.
It's just you. You're just thinking about you.
The auditorium.
But yeah, so I was already thinking like, I feel 24-hour tired at the 10-hour mark. I'm totally screwed, which is actually not, as you know, in endurance racing, not the logic. The logic is, however you feel now, you will feel much different later, no matter what.
You may have heard it doesn't always get worse. And it's true.
It's so true.
You like cycle through stuff. It's so wild. So we had finished stage 1. So the race started at 8 a.m. We finished stage 1 at like 4 p.m. No, it's like 5:30.
Oh, really?
It was closer to 5. Yeah. It was a long stretch of time. So we got to the first
TA.
transition area to get onto our bikes, or actually it was just a bike drop. I don't even know that it was officially a TA. And we got in, and team semi-Navi Savvy, the three-woman team, was
in the
busy
warming
at
tent.
work in the warming tent, getting their routes drawn out, because we got the maps for stage 1 on Friday night, but we didn't get the rest of the maps until we were done with stage 1. So you had to do navigation on the fly, which is good, and that's pretty norm. But it was really cool. Just shout out to team semi-Navi Savvy.
I want to say something about them, because we hopped into the warming tent to change out of all of our wet clothes, which is a critical part of this race. But they didn't even look up at us, and they were all in their gear. They were getting ready to go out. They were looking at their navigation. They were consulting with each other. They were very focused and serious. And I feel such a deep sense of respect for this team, because it's so nice to sometimes you feel kind of insular when you are in the female adventure and endurance world. You feel like you're either my mentor or we race together, and that's basically all the people I know in ultras and AR. So when I see a team of women I've never seen before and they are super focused and super badass, I'm just oh, it's so exciting to know that there are more women that I don't even know that are doing this thing, and that have gathered a pile of women who have all these skills that can take you to the finish of a race like this.
It kind of feels like being a little kid and meeting another little kid at the grocery store and being like, oh, you like dinosaurs too?
Exactly that. And I don't even I did not desire their recognition to be hey guys, how are you doing? I loved that they were in this sort of competitive zone, because they see us, they know we're a female team.
Yeah.
And so they're probably in some ways thinking we need to get the fuck out of here. That's another female team. And that's awesome. The fact that there are enough women in this race to have a competitive spirit, we absolutely want to always help each other out to make sure everyone's safe and not missing important stuff. But it's a boon to me to have competition in this space as a woman.
They were working very effectively.
It was groovy. We were stoked to see it.
Cool. So we got out of the bike drop relatively fast, considering we had to strip top to bottom and get our maps done and get out. So got the routing done for the second stage. There was quite a lot of optional CPs on this course, which meant there was a lot of decisions about where to cut and where to keep going. So we had the general outline of all of the stages in advance and knew that so the second to last stage 5, was a pretty big trek to a pretty big pack raft. And in order to do the full trek and the full pack raft, they were estimating 12 hours to clear that section. I knew that it would take us whatever the maximum estimated time was, even to not clear that section. So I had purposely allocated 12 hours to do that stage, which I knew for the pace that we would go, and from our experience at Shenandoah that we needed to cut stuff early on to ensure that we had time. So we started, really with stage 1, we skipped 2 optional checkpoints and really stuck to just the mandatories and any optionals that were on the way. So in stage 2, a bike stage, you had a minimum distance of 29 miles estimated, of course, but depending on navigation choices, and a full distance if you did everything of 38 miles. My goal was for us to stick to the 29 miles and just do the mandatory checkpoints. And it's wild to me to think that this was stage 2, but during stage 2 is when sunset happened, because that's how time works.
Wow. We really did get sucked into a weird hole there. We left the TA, and then it started to drizzle pretty much within a mile, and we decided to put all of our rain gear on
early, which was, we had talked about this before, is putting our rain gear on
before you get soaked, so you don't trap cold water inside your setup.
Yeah, which to me is hard to do. It's the same thing as trying to pull off clothes before you get too hot. I always find myself doing it a half minute too late.
We did a shitload of weird changes on the bikes, because it was you descend in 42-degree weather at 30 miles an hour, and you'd be frozen. and then you'd ascend, and you'd be wearing 3 shirts and a frog tog, and you'd be like in a wrestling suit, sweating your boobies off.
Yeah. So it was a lot of adventure racing where you put on layers and take
them
back
off again.
So we and we also were not on stage 2 very long before you and I got really sleepy.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for in my notes. We got to the top of a climb, and I think we stopped to like eat some gummy bears, and we looked at each other like, wow, I feel sweetie pants.
Yeah, like nodding off. And it's funny, until just now, it hadn't occurred to me how short we were on the bike before we were really sleepy. Because we left the bike drop at like 5:30, and we tried to sleep before it was night.
Yeah, so we laid down at like 6:30, right?
No, I think it was like 7:30. I think it was close to 7:30 because we did that climb up past the postal workers' house.
Okay, I believe you, but I had set my watch alarm, so I'm almost positive when we laid down it was 6:25, and I was gonna wake us up at like 6:40.
Oh, okay.
So we laid down in a pile of gravel.
It was sometime not that long into the race.
Next to a water irrigation area.
Yeah, and a dumpster.
And then we just hid behind a dumpster, and we spooned on the ground, and I fell asleep instantly.
Yeah.
And I slept for 5 minutes, and Annie got really like shivery cold because the ground will just sap all of the heat out of you. So we got right back on the bikes. That's the first time we've ever together. I know you've done other endurance events, but that's the first time I've ever tried to sleep in a race. And for me, it worked great.
It's awesome. Like, and I've had enough experience to know, like, instead of trying to battle sleepiness for hours, like,
just get it out of the way.
Lay down for a couple minutes.
What's
see if
10
it does
minutes
something.
in 36
Just
hours?
keep going.
So we engaged our caffeine bomb at this time and decided to do some real serious military energy gum just to like get our shit back together. And it worked. It worked great.
Yeah. So we did the rest of the bike stage. Sunset happened. As we did on this race, and probably will do every fucking race, we had bike light.
Oh man, always the bike light issues.
We're just trying so hard to figure out like all night long light solutions. I was super stoked because I felt like I finally had it. I had taken the like tube light from my Lumen 800 Ultra Aspire waist belt, attached that to my bike in addition to my bike light that I have 2 giant batteries for, in addition to my Princeton Tech helmet, and without fail, just like at Shenandoah, one of my lights just completely did not work. So,
you say that that's a problem, but you still had 2 other light sources that were so bright it was like being in someone's living room.
I want it to feel like I'm in a car
all
night.
My only light issue was that when we descended, mine popped off into the darkness.
That was so funny to see from the front because it looked like it just like blinked.
Nope, it flew into the woods.
Yeah, did you just hit a bump?
Yeah, well, so in between the 2 bike legs, I could charge it, and I did, but when I put it back on my mount, I didn't snap it.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
We descended a technical Jeep road, and it went pa-ting! Right into just out into nowhere.
It makes me think we'll probably have one of those every race about how Laura's bike light just like turned off in the middle of Shenandoah.
That was
like
spooky.
just complete darkness. And it was like, oh, we have to stop. Like right now, we have to stop.
So, do you have anything else to say about that bike leg?
Yeah, so the last mandatory checkpoint of that stage, M11, it was on this long descent and other lessons learned. So we have a bike computer that we have never set up except for on race day.
Which didn't work.
When we did nationals 2 years ago, we set it up on a bike the night before and it didn't work. And this
Still
time,
didn't work this time.
This time with a computer that's 2 years older and 2 years crustier, it didn't work. So,
Surprise.
Adventure racing, you're allowed to have a bike odometer to give you miles and stuff. It can't be GPS. We didn't have that, which makes it a little bit more challenging for navigation because you have to pay a lot more attention to features and can't kind of keep distance in mind because you can't pace count on a bike. And so we were on this long descent, or there was this long descent, and I had us start looking slowly, or have us moving slowly to look for the checkpoint. And I honestly think we went slowly by where it was the first time.
We did.
But we went probably, I think when we finally decided to turn around, I guess it wasn't that far because we went really slow down this hill, and I said, okay, we've definitely gone too far. We've gotten to this water feature that's on this road. This is our catching feature. We need to turn back.
We probably only backtracked a quarter mile.
It was 1,000 meters, actually. It was specifically 1,000 meters.
Kaboom.
And then we were able to attack off of just a bend in the road, which was awesome because we spent a lot of time.
We spent a lot of time looking for this, and we were
Yeah.
like, we can't move forward without a mandatory. That
Yeah.
would be such a bummer.
Yeah, that would just suck. And we've also determined that being on a road with a checkpoint that's down in a river off the side of the road is my absolute least favorite checkpoint. There's just nothing gratifying.
It's just such a bummer that we couldn't fly down this long descent because we just ended up breaking down this really steep descent. So,
and to other 40 plus teams in front of us, could you just make sure that you
make
create
a big
really
trail.
good trail for us?
Yeah, can you just stomp down all the ground,
That's
please?
why we hang out in the back so we can just follow the elephant trail to the CP.
It's true.
Hello.
It's true.
But we got our checkpoint. It felt really good. Got back on our bikes. Did get to fly down that hill. And came into our transition area. So on to stage 3. Stage 3 was a minimum 4 mile and maximum 16 mile trekking stage.
Yeah, well, this is where people made some tactical and very smart decisions.
Yeah. Lots of good things at the TA. So this is where
Yeah.
Abby Perkis gave you your birthday cupcake.
Which was rad. I
Yep.
chugged a Mountain Dew. We put on some more dry clothes.
Also, we got to see other people, which we had honestly gone most of this whole day without seeing many other people, except for like teams like classic hits of the 70s and 80s,
What's
which
up?
is a great team
name.
But we got into the TA, and because the trekking leg could be so long, especially for those that were clearing the course or doing the majority of the trekking points,
We were finally with a bunch of other people.
Yeah, there was bikes everywhere.
Praise
we got
God.
to see people. It was like, oh wow, we're not the only ones doing this. Very cool.
Also, some early carnage, though.
There was some early carnage.
We saw some people sleeping while sitting up by the fire.
Yeah. We got to see, I think Stephanie Ross and Karen Clark are who we saw the most often throughout the
That's
whole
true. That's true.
whole race. And
Which is lovely because
yeah,
they are mentors in adventure
I respect
racing.
the hell out of Stephanie Ross, and she
Same.
was one of the first women I heard about being a badass in navigating.
for sure.
I still remember going to my first orienteering meet and somebody telling me about Stephanie and how they saw her like leap off of a cliff.
I
at a
heard that
checkpoint.
story.
So I just love seeing Stephanie.
Yeah.
I will also say, when we saw Stephanie outside of this transition area, I know for those of you that are newer, we've talked about haunted Lauren before, when her soul seems to have left her
Yeah.
body and it reflects in her eyes.
Yeah.
I would say we got to see
Just
haunted Stephanie.
just a little bit, because she didn't know who we were as we passed. It was dark, and then we were talking, and she was like, "Barf, barf," and we were like, "Stephanie."
She seemed a little like, hey guys.
Hi guys. Yeah. I mean, this was probably a moment to feel like that, but we were starting to bounce back up, I would say. Like, we were cogent. We were still talking and having fun. We went out on foot for the minimum amount of CPs. We were really bummed to hear that you had to cross the creek twice to find these.
Because we had been so wet in the creek walk, and then we had gotten to be, air quote, dry for the bike ride, even though it sprinkled on us on the bike ride. But not to undercut our accomplishment, the water in Pennsylvania was not super, super cold. Like, it was not unpleasant. It wasn't like...
It wasn't burn your feet off cold.
Yes.
No, it wasn't like the bone hurting cold.
It did not feel nice.
No, it didn't feel nice.
It just was not like, oh!
Yeah, no, it wasn't horrible. So we had a few CPs that were, I would say, like pretty and technical and interesting.
Yeah.
There was a descent that... there's a bunch of rope down there, and I'm sure it's for tourists, but it spooked me instantly because it was like, oh no, I don't want to rappel down anything.
Yeah, but and it should have occurred to you that you had gone down similar descents covered in slippery rocks without ropes, so dirt with rope.
I don't know why it spooked me.
Yeah, but it was very cool because we got the one mandatory checkpoint and three optional checkpoints outside of that, and each one was at a really cool feature. And again, people were bouncing all over. It was. That was a fun part. That was a fun part for me.
I think I was in my head in that time, which is in a good way. Like I was processing some life things, which I think I went through with you.
Sure.
And so I was.
Yeah, that's when you were like, I'm just going to talk at you. And like,
Yeah, I'm just going to like feel some feelings out.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it felt right to me. And I was still in the moment.
Yeah.
So our goals, we should tell you, like, we had mantras for this race. And mine was to be like very much a part of the moment, no matter what the moment was like. So to be mindful, even if there's discomfort or suffering or like panic, to always be in the moment.
And mine was to recognize that I am worthy and to recognize my value. So mine was, are you recognizing your worth? You are valued.
Yeah, I also tried to consider one from a book that my pal Timmery recommended called Untethered Soul.
Yeah.
Which is has given me instruction that I can be experiencing boundless joy, enthusiasm, and love all the time, but I'm blocking that. And that I really did think about that really hard. Like, what if I just decided that this moment was filled with enthusiasm and joy? And that worked really well for me, even through major discomfort, like through this entire race.
And I want to share a conversation we had on the way to the race, because I think all of these kind of like ethereal mystical things have like really scientific roots to them. So we were comparing the narrative of this book, The Untethered Soul, to How Bad Do You Want It by Matt Fitzgerald, where essentially in Matt Fitzgerald's book, he goes through all of these different athletic endeavors and what's kind of made the difference between somebody that was uber successful and somebody who wasn't. So like one of the chapters is about Pre and just his success in running and how he just went like all out and what that means and all these different examples. And really he comes down to like, hey, there's no science that says exactly when someone can stop or what makes someone quit. It comes down to how bad do you want it?
Right.
And to me, that is like the same thing as saying like you are keeping yourself from
joy and
from endless
joy
energy.
and energy. Yes, energy. That was the piece that I was missing there. So there's a little bit of magic in that to me.
Yeah.
Because there is a piece of science that cannot speak to why people can do expedition races, why people can do 36-hour races without sleeping.
Yeah.
Why is it like that your central governor is wrong?
Yeah.
Why do you have so much more to wring out no matter when, like, even if you think you have nothing left to give, if you're the rock that you can't squeeze blood from, you are wrong. Because there's still magic in the rock. You're just blocking your energy.
Yeah. And it's wild too, because we talked about like if stage 1, when we did this 12-mile stage where 9 to 10 miles of it was walking a river, we could do that one stage, and if somebody told us that was all there was to a race,
we would have been exhausted.
Sit down exhausted, and we would be done. We would not be able to do
we'd be like,
anything.
holy shit, we just walked through a river for 12 hours. We need a beer and a hamburger.
There's really no reason we should have or would have thought that we could go another 24 hours of doing intense things. But it just comes down to somebody being like, yeah, you can, or like, here's the thing that we're asking of you. And then we went and did it.
Yeah. Something that I was trying to harness was like, this is not exactly an example from the book that I read, but it's very similar, which is to feel like, why can't I feel in this moment like I did when I like got proposed to? Like, that was just an overflowing well of just like juicy love and happiness and fulfillment. What if I just decided that descending this loamy thing next to a waterfall, even though I'm scared and cold and wet, why can't I decide that this moment is just like that moment?
Yeah.
And I did a lot of that.
Yeah. So that was probably the most profound part of the race for us, because the rest of it was just dumb shit.
Dumb, dingly, wingly, nonsense, bonkers, boo-boo, beep-beeps.
So we did our stage 3. We did our mandatory checkpoint, or the minimum distance that we could do.
We got the hell out of there.
Got the heck out of
back
there.
Back to the TA, changed again.
Got
a very scary race safety briefing.
Yeah, from Brent Friedland, the other RD, or part of Rootstock Racing, along with Abby Perkis. Brent maybe in the future we'll give a whole episode to you. This one's just for Abby. But but you did design a beautiful course. So he was forewarning us. We were finishing up stage 3. We still had stage 4, which was a bike leg before we did the pack raft stage. So he was giving us a heads up about how we needed to descend from the trek portion into the pack raft, where we would be dropping in our pack rafts into Pine Creek. And it was a lot of like, I'll admit, and again, I think this is the thing that I'll continue to evolve as a navigator, but Brent was giving me a lot of information to consider, and a lot of it stuck, but it kind of felt like when somebody gives you turn-by-turn directions when you know you're just going to punch the address into Google Maps. And I was just like,
there was a lot. There was a lot. And everyone knows that I tend to be grumpy, especially when men try to tell me what to do in the middle of the night during a race, and I tend to just completely block them out entirely.
Luckily, I was actually listening.
I was listening to the parts that I felt were valuable, and then my brain went, bow.
Okay, good. Wasn't there a point during the race that you were talking and I was like, I just stopped listening? I was like,
yes, you were like, I stopped listening in the middle of that sentence.
Yeah.
I don't even know why.
I don't either.
You're like, this isn't relevant to me. Yeah. I'm not listening anymore. I only heard the first part of the sentence.
Yeah. So we left after stage 3 and we set out on stage 4, which was a 17-mile bike. And we went through a couple of small towns, which was really nice and refreshing.
It was kind of peaceful to like go through a flat area with like really nice houses with cute little flowers. Yeah. It just made you feel like, oh, people are having a nice restful time tonight, and also, that feels calming.
You know what's weird? Usually when we go through towns like that, all I can think of is here's normal people doing normal stuff. I would like to be in my house doing normal stuff. And I didn't have that at all. It was very reassuring, and it usually does not feel like that. Usually it feels like it's like somebody being like, aren't you in a lot of pain? And then you're like, I am.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like that.
No, I had the same experience of this race where I felt like I kept asking myself, like, would you actually rather like be drinking, partying, and eating pizza for your birthday weekend? And I was like, no, that's not what kind of person I am anymore. That's not who I am. This is what I want to be doing. Yeah. This. I can't believe you're not more surprised by that statement.
Oh, no. You've said a few things that are shocking that I'm going to make sure to get recorded in an episode. I'll let you finish your drink so you don't do a spit take. This is also when you started pooping, is on stage 4, I think.
Really? Oh, yeah.
And this is a good thing.
This is a good thing.
Usually for Lauren, like, the poop setting in is like the
it's the end of the it's the beginning of the end. Like, no, it was good.
Yeah, and you were also you had been nauseous for the entirety of stage 1.
14 hours.
Yep. And you were really putting away calories, which was dope.
Yeah.
And
I was feeling good. By then I felt good. I felt good. I started to finally get my groove right around this stage. So the middle of the night, I guess.
Yeah.
So we had taken, I don't want to do a turn by turn. Let's not bore the people with the weirdness. But we did perhaps start going on a road. This is not the road we thought we were on.
Oh, yeah.
So we were on a parallel road from the road that we were supposed to be on. We were headed up. We were leaving
the town of Arnott. We were on a road that I thought we were on, and I was like, oh, look, it's a body of water. It's time for me to flip my map. And then I flipped my map and was like, okay, we're continuing on the road that I know that we're on. And we come up and we see Team Fragile Flowers led by Olga Huber.
Grooving, though. I want to let you know, like, we're just entering the Annie and Lauren weirdness groove.
Yep.
We're starting to do a Disney montage. We're singing The Seaweed is Always Greener. We're already pretty close to the downward spiral of nonsense that continued for the next...
Although downward spiral, I think, gives it a negative connotation.
Upward?
We began our
ascent out of our bodies.
Our own bodily induced acid trip without acid. This is when it began.
Oh, this was really like chugging mushroom tea for the rest of the race.
Yeah. So we're on our bikes and we come up to Team Fragile Flowers, again led by the bomb-ass navigator Olga, and she was like, where did you guys just come from? Because they had popped out from getting an optional CP on the first mountain bike leg. And I was like, we are on this road, headed west out of the town of Arnett. We've just passed this body of water. This is where we are. And she was like,
No.
She was like,
I did not
you
think
want to
so.
be on a road that's going west. This road goes north. And I was like, this is the road that we're on. Goodbye.
So Annie like didn't even look back at her, and we were like, I guess we're going. So I looked back at them and I was like, I trust Annie. Let's go, Annie.
And Olga was super clear about, she was like, I do not think you are where you think you are.
So we carried on a little while, and I was like, we are going this direction.
And I was like, I definitely know where we're going.
So we went about a quarter mile.
I was like, unless.
And Annie was
balls.
like, shit, okay. So we turned around, and we were descending as they were ascending, and they were walking their bikes, and we were like, we're sorry, you were right, bye.
And Olga, if you happen to be listening, so when I first did a race that involved heavy navigation, or I should say a decent amount of navigation, and I got fucked because I totally fell into herd mentality and followed someone that I should not have when I knew exactly where I actually was. And pretty much my goal since then in doing orienteering and navigating events is to know and do things based on my own knowledge and decisions, and really strongly try to avoid herd mentality. And I would say it has led me to at times make the wrong choice because I'm actively trying to avoid.
Yeah, but in the end, it's probably better to do that than the former.
Yes. So I respect the heck out of you. It was nothing, specifically didn't think you knew what you were doing, because I knew you knew what you were doing. I just was feeling a kind of way, so
spicy sassy. So we left them.
But it really broke up the night. It was great.
It was great.
It was a great interlude.
It was a fun and funny interlude. It was like, oh, okay, maybe you're right. Okay, and bye.
Thanks for the help. We'll go goodbye.
So at this point, we headed towards the Packraft TA, and the sun was rising, and I was a little bit like tweaky, not terribly exhausted, but I knew that I wanted a caffeine blast myself. We got to the TA. It was not raining. The sun was up.
I think it was misty. There was a lot of times it was misty. We got to see Stephanie Ross and Karen Clark again.
As
we were coming into the TA. They were leaving and heading out with their pack rafts and everything loaded up on their bag.
It did look silly as fuck, and I was like, oh yeah, you have to carry your own PFDs and your oars and your boat. Huh. That looks kind of crazy. That looks pretty crazy.
So I would say that this upcoming stage 5 that we were about to embark on, and Team Flying Squirrel was just headed out on, was kind of like, I hesitate to say the marquee stage, but it was kind of like a big feature of this race was doing the pack rafting portion. And Brent really prided himself on the pack raft course he had built into this stage, and getting to see parts of Pine Creek that you would not otherwise see. But as of this moment, pack rafting seems fucking silly.
Yeah, we're not too into it. I would like to say, however, that in spite of this being maybe the hardest part for me, this is the one I had the most fun, even though it was the most difficult.
Yeah. So our plan was that we would load the pack raft up on Lauren, because she is the stronger person fitness-wise right now, and that we would move some stuff to my pack. So Lauren took the Alpaca Forager, which is a tandem pack raft. It weighs about 13 pounds.
It can go straight to hell.
And you carried the additional 13-pound pack raft, your oars, our two-piece oars, or our two-piece paddles, I should say. I had my paddles. I had both the PFDs
and
I had
all of our gear.
Some of your gear as well moved over to my pack, and we set out. So just imagine we've got our normal adventure racing packs on, the out there pack, and we have our oars sticking straight up. So we're tall women anyways, so our clearance is like 8 feet
at least.
Yeah.
That's not the height of the forest.
Yeah. But we got everything cinched down pretty well, which was good, considering we rented a pack raft from Backcountry Pack Raft Rentals. So shout out to them for getting us a pack raft, and that process was pretty smooth. But we didn't know how
anything.
We didn't know anything really about pack rafting. I watched a couple videos to make sure I knew how to inflate it, and looked up anything I could. but it kind of was one of those things where it's like, you don't know what you don't know.
No. And we're not even at the point where it's a pack raft. Right now it's just
right now it's on
Right now it's just a pile of bricks in my back.
So essentially, all of stage 5, the pack raft stage, was actually optional. But you were trekking out
13 miles
upriver and then pack rafting back to the TA. So it was like an out and back from the TA. And there was a shorter spot to put in, and then there was a longer spot to put in. And I had allocated time for us to do the full trek out and the full pack raft back. What that entailed was Lauren toting a pack raft up a mountain.
I feel super happy about this.
And this was 24 hours into the race.
So, leaving the TA 24 hours into the race on the bike path, on the rails to trails, we both did a couple poops, felt really good about it.
Yeah.
They just shot out of our bodies, and so we were ready to go 5 pounds later.
Mostly related to the fact that we did a Bang energy shot.
Oh, that's probably why.
So we did this Bang energy shot, which is like not a 5-hour energy shot, but like a 26-hour energy shot. And
we chugged Mountain Dews.
Yes, and we chugged Mountain Dews and had a bunch of food, and we made it like 10 minutes of being like, woo, 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 and then we were like, bathroom time right now. Right now.
Yeah, emergency evacuation. But also, that much caffeine at that hour, for some reason, just turned me immediately into a hallucinating toddler, but in a fun way, exciting way.
So, and I think it's relatively safe to say from this point on, we were
nothing made
happy.
sense. We were ridiculous.
Just from the Shenandoah Epic Adventure Race, I had all these profound, complex feelings that I was working through, and like feelings of my worth and just feeling like insufficient and that I didn't know how to navigate. And this race, I was like completely like prepared to have, a lot of string of thoughts or a lot of things that I, was going to work through, or like stuff was just going to like come out of me.
Yeah, you're just going to emote.
And instead what I got as far as inner monologue was like, or more specifically, all the greatest R&B hits of the 90s.
It's totally my fault. And my inner monologue was, this is hard. Ooh, orange.
Like, if someone had been listening to our conversation, they would have been concerned potentially for
worried.
Our health and safety. Because, again, we're going up to this mountain. We're doing these, big in and out re-entrants, like going over, like hiking, on the top of these beautiful waterfalls. And Lauren is like just streaming nonsense out of her mouth. I'm streaming nonsense out of my mouth as
We're agreeing about whatever it is that comes out.
I'm hearing from her. It doesn't matter what she said. I heard whatever I needed to hear, and it didn't matter what I said. Lauren just heard what she needed to hear.
Yeah.
So who knows what conversations we actually had, because we weren't having them with each other.
No, we weren't. We were not. And I would get an idea, and I'd start the sentence, and I'd be like, sometimes I feel like maybe when I was in high school, orange. Right? And you'd be like, yeah, I think I get it.
Also, we were just randomly screaming out sounds a lot.
Oh, we did a lot of like, if you were uncomfortable or tired, or like your pack was too heavy, we were like making gorilla noises with gorilla arms.
Yep, it was very important to our success.
For us, like that's a coping skill for us.
Yeah.
Is sometimes you just had like, for a while I had to make some pain noises because my shoulders were, and I had to make some like Sylvan Esso themed pain noises. I was like,
and then I added like a beat to
ooh. Ooh.
That's just an example.
That's just an example of like, and no, there were no questions to be asked.
No.
We were just on the same page about that.
What did make this part a little bit challenging, in addition to the elevation and carrying a pack raft and everything else, was other people.
Oh yeah, so we came upon a couple in their 50s were hiking with their like corgi weird mixed dog, who was definitely an adventure dog, and their very angry white terrier who they had to carry so it didn't kill us. I was super stoked to see this puppy whose name was Macaroni and Cheese. He was like a little...
talk about Macaroni and Cheese for a long time.
I can't not get over him. When I get obsessed with a dog that I like, it becomes my dog in my mind for a very long time, and then I can't live without it. I need this dog. He was like soft and fluffy, but also like kind of athletic looking.
He was very cute.
And they were like They call them Mac for short. I was super into it.
And then we also came up, as we were getting a checkpoint off trail just a little bit, these two older gentlemen hikers came up and they were like, one of them said...
Wait, no, before you get there. We had seen them earlier, and we usually applesauce each other if we're going to say something bad, but we didn't see that two 70-year-old men were packing up their hiking camp. And I said, if I see one more motherfucking snake on a motherfucking plane...
Or I think you said
re-entrant. I think I was talking about re-entrants.
Yes.
I think if I see one more motherfucking re-entrant that is not our motherfucking re-entrant... And then I looked, and there was two 70-year-old dudes, like, packing up a camp. And
because this
like,
always happens. We're always, like, screaming obscenities or talking about privates, like, when families come up.
Really bad, because I was screaming the worst potty words I could think of. So we passed them as fast as we could because I was super embarrassed, and then they came up on us later when we were grabbing a checkpoint.
Yeah, and so one of the guys said, Are you one of the 36?
And my brain was like, could only think of the 21 people in China who died during the ultra marathon, and I was like, one of the 36 people who died on this mountain.
Oh, and like our brains were like so like both of us just like scrambled.
Wait, 36 what?
Who are the other 34?
Where are they?
You? Class of 36? I'm not 36.
What time is it? Why? Are you he?
And we were like, yes. And he was like the 36th
the
hour.
race. And we were like,
yes.
Oh my God. Yeah. I was like, I'm sorry. We started at 8 a.m. yesterday. So we're not here.
No.
We're not with you now.
That was one of those like brutal reality injections where it was like, oh, neither one of us is here right now.
Oh no, we've been talking like two toddlers who don't speak English for the last 3 hours and being completely cool with it. And then like someone like Kool-Aid Man'd into our reality and was like, hey guys, nothing you're saying makes any sense.
And we were like,
It took us I would say it took us a while to recover from that. We didn't recover from that. We continued to spiral into madness. We screamed, sang Boyz II Men, Tony Braxton. I can't even remember what else.
Yeah, I can't count how many times I said, down on my knees, begging you please.
Baby. We did a lot of that. We also recognized that colors were as bright as we've ever seen them in our lives.
Yeah, the orange on the top of the hike for the pack rafting stage was spectacular.
I get to this point in the early morning, and I'm so glad to know in a long style race like this that it will go away later in the afternoon. But in the morning, everything sort of breathes, like it expands and contracts, or like faces appear in things. So a squatting,
like drugs.
Like drugs. Yeah, if you want to experience drugs, just do this. But I was pooping, and I was like, oh no, everything has a face. Everything has a face. Oh God. And then I was like, okay, close your eyes so you don't hallucinate. And I closed my eyes and I was like, you're falling asleep. You're going to sit in your own poop. So I opened my eyes again and I was like, everything has a face. Those are your options.
Good. Yeah.
Fall asleep and squat into your own poop, or everything has a face.
You have to look at all the faces.
Oh my God, it's so scary.
Out of those two.
It's like
unless you don't.
Mushrooms are growing and then shrinking and then growing orange.
Cool. So we wrap up the trekking part by descending to the pack raft, which was what the entire safety briefing from Brent was at the TA was about, how we were going to go down this hollow, essentially. Holler.
What are we calling this? We're calling the Hell Gully, the Shalescape, the Tube of Doom.
The Spidey Chute. I don't know.
The Spidey Chute. The nonsense nettle... nope, I got nothing else.
The nettle nutty pot.
The nettle nutty pot. Yeah, that's basically the same thing. Is doing a neti pot filled with nettle. Yep. That's how bad this was.
And so this is one of those sections where I could have forced a better choice as a navigator, and Brent had alluded that the spur that ran tangent right next or parallel to the chute we would be going down could be a solid option for getting down to the pack raft put in, but he wasn't 100% sure because he didn't do it all the way. And we did what a team in front of us did and went down the re-entrance straight down the middle where the water and the rock was, and it was gnarly. So we again had our bike helmets on because there was a section where there was I think it was stated as like a 3 to 4 foot drop. It seemed like more than that.
It did. So we opted against doing the drop because it was mossy, slick, flat shale to a between 3 and 5 foot mossy shale drop.
So the option that we saw the team again in front of us take, and I wish I knew the team name it right in front of us.
It was Rootstock because they were down there with their beautiful pack rafts.
Oh, okay.
Right as we ended.
So they scrambled up the side and then came down. And the fun part about going up the steep side, beside the fact that it was really steep, loamy dirt, was that it was covered in nettle.
It was flaming, screaming, hurting my whole body.
It was hilarious.
I
thought the nettle, so the sides, so there's this crazy river re-entrant thing we're doing on this crazy steep descent down to the pack raft put in after we've hiked our pack raft up a mountain. And then the fact that the sides, if you decide you don't want to fall to your death on these slippery rocks, is
nettle.
It's covered in nettle.
It's like being on a reality TV show like Survivor and having them be like, you have to walk the plank. Also, it's on fire.
And it's probably the most nettle I've seen since the first time I went to Frozen Head.
When you wait, no, where were we when we were at
that was at No Sleep. Yeah, No Sleep.
No Sleep, not Nitro Gain, where you walked into waist deep nettle and just went, oh no.
Oh no. Oh no.
So this was bad.
It was a lot of nettle.
I came to a somewhat limit experience when I had to go around this drop because the drop, even from the loam, was about a 10-foot drop down into like craggy rocks. And I didn't know if I was going to slip or not. And so I was turning from my back facing the drop to like looking at the drop. And I was trying to put a foot down on a root that I wasn't sure it was attached. And as I slid towards it, I said, calm down, go slower, out loud. You are going to be okay. You've got this, which is the fact that I have to do that is saying like the level of scared I am.
And I, as a observer of all this, it was really dope because there's been times where I have said there's a thing that I don't or cannot do, and Lauren has been like, you just did that thing. You need to reevaluate if that's a thing that you cannot do because you just did that very well. And I got to have that experience with Lauren to say like, hey, I know like walking through water on rocks freaks you out. You do it well. We've just done a whole day of this. And I could see her brain like flip a switch and was like, it's business time. You need to get down this descent safely, efficiently, effectively. Let's get this done. Make good choices. Lead the way. Go down the hill. You went first that whole descent. And you did it like a boss.
I wanted to be done with it so fucking badly.
Yeah. And so we did this descent, and even as people descended in a quarter of the time down the aforementioned spur, but whatever, you live, you learn.
They were practically running.
Yeah.
That's painful.
But they didn't get to put their hands, elbow deep in nettle.
Yeah. So they
who's
lose.
the loser?
Obviously them.
Obviously them.
Nettle actually helps improve your adrenaline. So I was pumped with adrenaline, and as soon as we got to the bottom to unroll the pack raft,
a little bit.
My whole brain and body went, oh. And I literally was frozen while sitting, and I thought, you should inflate the middle of the pack raft. And my body was like, can't. I cannot. I can't.
You got cold, too.
I got cold instantly, and all my underclothing that was underneath my rain suit was frozen because I sat in water to get down the re-entrant.
Yeah.
It was the only safe option for me.
But luckily, I mean, it's a 36-hour race. You're going to have times when one person or the other just has to, like, fritz out for a second.
I had a little bit of fear that I was, like, leaning on you too hard in that moment.
No. I was golden. I felt golden. I was, like, doing the pack raft. Also, there was just, like, it was good that we had to be there for a while because we got to ask people, like, do you know how this works? Do you know? And people were so gracious about, like, helping each other out, really.
Yeah, we met somebody named Brian Gustavson from Team Wicked AR who really was just kind of our bud all day long and kind of like helping us along, just turning around to be like, I'm loving this. Are you loving this? We're loving this.
It was a good perspective. And we, again, not knowing what we didn't know with pack rafting, things like, oh, you have to turn the nozzle one way or the other so the air doesn't shoot back out of you.
Yeah,
or like,
little things.
Shoot back out of you.
That's weird. I blew out this pack raft and it blew out my ass somehow.
I feel like that's a good example of this weekend. So yes, I had my valve turned the wrong way and all of the air shot out of
you. Yeah.
I kept putting it in and it just shot back out.
I believe that.
So eventually we got it set up.
We did, and we were like, what the fuck is this middle seat for if there's 2 people? We won't even inflate it. We'll wrap it up and put it away.
Because the idea of sitting on the back of the pack raft seemed nuts.
Ill-advised to us.
It seemed like you would just like bounce off the back.
So that's not true or right or good. We should have inflated the middle seat so that the person in the middle and the weight distribution would have been even, so that we weren't. What we did was sit in the bottom of the boat together, basically like the bobsled team. And
so if you put a rock in a sock and then you put that in the river and you drag it along, the rock in the sock is going to bottom out.
Yeah, so we bottomed out like within 10 feet. And people are all in solo rafts, most of them in their own rafts with spray skirts, wearing full wetsuits. And we're basically wearing regular clothes.
Jeans. We're essentially wearing jeans.
We're essentially in jeans and hoodies.
And cardigans. Jeans and cardigans.
In a rented pack raft, just spinning in the water.
Don't allude like we were moving fast. Spinning like that implies we were moving.
We were slowly turning.
We were...
And then we would hit rocks and stop again, and then it would almost shoot me out the front of the boat.
Yeah, so it was rough the first part, and we were just like, we can't... and I had some like time panic at first because it was like, hey, like whatever else aside, like if we get stuck, whatever, we get stuck, but like how do we get down this river fast enough?
I thought if we have to portage for 10 miles with a boat, I'm going to kill someone.
Yeah, it'll take a long time.
It did slow us down, but not to the point where it was impossible, I would say. It was not fun. It was challenging because it was just like you'd go a little bit and you'd just see tons of rocks, and you couldn't really tell the difference between rapid and rocks.
Yeah.
Like rapid looked like a bad idea, rocks looked like a bad idea. So it was really hard to know which one of those. We're going to have to learn how to read water.
Yeah. Yeah, because right now we don't. So we would just like guess or watch what other people did, or other people would watch what we did and then not go the way that we went.
But we did see all of Wicked get stuck on the left side once, so I felt better about that.
Yeah. But we did get better as we went along. Again, this is our first time ever pack rafting, so I feel like we actually did pretty well considering that.
Other than sitting in the boat completely wrong. So I couldn't get any purchase because I was sitting cross-legged in the bow of the boat on the floor. So if Annie would shake the boat to come out of a rock, my whole body would flip back like a toddler who has no abs, because my PFD is so long that I couldn't lean forward to keep my abs tight so I wouldn't spring back. So I would just randomly fall back into Annie's lap, and at some point I just gave up. I held my paddle forward across the boat, and I laid in Annie's lap, and she was like, "You can just stay there." And I was like, "Thank you so much."
So I just paddled for a while, bonking my paddle on her
and
bike
my helmet
and splashing water all over her from the paddle, and Lauren was
I've never been so happy in my life.
Lauren was just like, "This is great," and I'm just like bonking her head, like I'm not even doing it on purpose. I'm doing my best to like just let her have a second, and I'm just like splashing water all
I was the most comfortable and happy I think I've ever been, just to be hit in the face with cold water.
And I was like, hey, we're not that effective at paddling this thing. It doesn't matter if we both paddle. It doesn't. But we had a couple spots where I got out of the boat to just like move the boat, and just having just one of us was enough weight out in order to get the boat to move on some of the shallow spots. By that. It's so funny though, because
I know it's like 6 inches of water.
Yeah, and also just Lauren from her position not having stability and kind of like just, you know,
being whipped around,
being at the will of the way the boat moved or whatever. It took a minute, I think, for you to recognize that, like,
there's no imminent danger here.
There was like no flipping that could happen. I don't think that there wasn't enough water for the boat.
There were some deep spots, and if we had gotten soaked head to toe, we would have really screwed.
But I don't think she realized that, like, I don't know who I'm talking to.
Yeah, I'm here.
People.
It's me.
You. I would like. After I would portage the boat for a minute, I would just like
flop her whole body
into the boat, and the boat would not like. It wouldn't do much of anything.
No, like, it's a giant floaty toy. It's not going anywhere.
So at one point we got to. Were you also out of the boat? Were we both?
No, I never ever would have risked getting out of the boat. I was too scared.
How did you end up?
Oh no, I did. I did.
Oh, because it was very,
and I was
very
scared.
shallow.
I was scared anyway.
Yeah.
Because I felt like you were fine with walking, and I was slipping, and you were dragging the boat, and I was holding the boat. So you were basically about to drag me into the water, and I really wanted to shout at you.
Oh, gotcha.
But my brain was so scrambled that it would have come out like, I could not say...
the boat! The boat! The boat!
The boat! I couldn't say anything. But before I could, I just decided... Fuck you. I'm getting back in this boat. So I jumped into the boat and was laying long ways in it. And you were like, oh, it's rapids. Like, not scary rapids, but
just
it's
like,
picking
the boat's going to move. Let's go.
It's picking up enough. So Annie jumped in. And as the rapids, it was like getting on an escalator. It was like the rapids began and Annie's single leg was in the boat and other leg was dragging behind us like a rudder.
I essentially looked like when they put Peter Pan on the hoist when it's like on the stage and they have like one arm out and like one leg out. That's the position that I was laying in the boat. And I told Lauren, I was like, let's just let it ride out. Let's let it ride out. We're just like laughing this whole time as we go through. And hopefully by that experience connected that the boat was like pretty...
It was not going anywhere.
It wasn't going anywhere. It was not going to flip
like,
no matter what we did. Like, we were not well positioned. We were going to be fine in there with like half of our body parts out and like the water's moving pretty well finally. And we're just like half in the boats just screaming
silly.
Our heads off. It was so fun. That was the most fun of
It was the most fun. It was the most fun. But like the whole thing was, I would say, ridiculous. The whole pack raft was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was not smooth or good. Like, we did kind of get a rhythm down paddling, but that wasn't terribly helpful.
No, it wasn't enough water for our skills did not allow us to do that the most in combination with maybe the environment. I don't know.
That was a sentence.
We did not have our boat inflated. Yikes! This is again a sampling of the weekend.
Who we are
our
now.
Boat was not inflated like super tight because we didn't know how to top it off. We didn't have the center seat on. We weren't like in the boat well. Like
we saw other people with mechanical inflators who also had their spray skirts and their dry suits, and we were just like blowing up a pack raft with our mouths. We're like, oh man, we're the most amateur dingbats.
Yeah, but we did it. We did it. We did the full pack raft, which I'm super proud of.
We got a couple checkpoints. We skipped one. We skipped PP, right?
PP.
PP.
Yeah, we skipped PP.
I went looking for one a little too early.
Yeah.
In a marsh. I followed the weird minion dressed team.
Because, and I have to know, did you like wig out and like sprint in after them?
I did.
Yeah.
You know me.
I know. You're a hell of a gopher.
Like, if you want me to get something, I'll get it as fast as humanly possible. So they went in about at least 250 meters into tall grass with like suck mud. Like tall grass, like 7-foot tall grass and
tall grass.
Suck mud. Hand face. Oh no.
Paddle.
And then was like, this seems too far in. I was like, are you guys following the elephant tracks? And the guy turns around, who's chasing his teammate. He goes, we are the elephant tracks. And I was like, shit. And then I hear Annie screaming, craft. And I was like, I'm coming back. But this is the moment when Lauren's pitiful brain went boo, because I was soaked.
Yeah.
And it was just about to rain, and I was freezing cold, and we were really having a hard time getting our heart rates up in the boat because you just couldn't paddle hard enough to make yourself warm.
And Calm Toys has kind of like warned us of this moment, which is like when you go to get out of the canoe, you just realize like half of your body just like doesn't work.
Oh yeah. It was like,
and it is
baby
pretty
giraffe
panic
legs.
Inducing, like because I know for me too, when we pulled out, like it was just like my body was like, wait, you want more stuff? You want more stuff? Like, but your back don't work no more.
My lower back was sore, my abs were tired, and my legs were jelly, and I was frozen. So when I got back on the boat, I gave Annie the big eyes like, we have to go now. You did do the like, we are in danger.
We are in danger.
It's
And I was
because
like, okay, Lauren.
I'm
we're
so
in
afraid of
danger.
hypothermia.
Yeah.
That would just ruin my race.
Yeah. So we went by an optional CP. Like, I feel like we could have put our hands out and brushed it, and Lauren was like, no. I was like, okay.
Thank you for respecting my needs.
I get it.
But you were about to be cold too. Mm-hmm. No, you weren't.
I did what the
don't
team needed.
Don't patronize me,
I'm not
bitch.
patronizing you. You said what you needed, and I gave it to you.
You weren't cold?
I could have got that checkpoint, and it's okay. Mm-hmm. I wish that face had a noise.
Here it is.
But no, it is, our communication is one of our strengths, and it's very important.
Yeah, true. If you're like, I need to stop and put my gloves on, I'm like, you got it. Take your time. And if I'm like, I cannot go to that CP, you're like, you got it. We're leaving.
Yep. So we got to our last transition area, and after this, it was just a relatively short bike ride. It says that it was 12 miles. I swear it didn't even feel like 12 miles.
It was.
Was it? Mm-hmm. I guess there were parts that was pretty zingy. But we got in, and
I'd like to tell the Porta John story, please.
Oh, actually, before the Porta John story. I think it's a good frame of reference for our level of like nonsense and slap happiness. We got towards the end of the pack raft, started to see people up on the bank, which was cool. And then there was just these two little like plops of white foam in the water, and I was like, we have to go through the slalom. We have to get through the gate. We have to get through the gate. Yeah. And it went from being like a silly thing that I said to probably being the time that we paddled the most effectively for that whole pack raft. And there was few things during this whole race
more
that were
satisfying than going through the foam slalom.
Sea foam.
I don't know why, but we were like, we weren't joking like, yeah, sure. We were like, slalom.
We got to get through the gate.
Slalom.
That was absolutely like a
high
finish
point
line for me.
Okay,
just
good.
Being like, yay!
Okay, so
we pull out our boat.
We get out of the water, and I'm like, yo, I got to get dry immediately, and it's pouring.
Yeah, it was pretty yucky at this point.
Yeah. So I wanted to help with the boat. I started to fold up the boat and get the air out of it, and Annie was just like, go.
Yeah, because we had to get the pack raft back in the paddle bags, which
seemed
like an astronomical task.
We did it, but so I went and got all my dry clothes, and thank God I still had more bags of dry clothes. I went into the Porta John because it's the only place there was shelter. And so I started getting naked. I took my sports bra off. I took my wet socks off. And all I had left was my bike pants on. Or, yeah, I think that's right. No, just regular tights. And so I'm sort of like drying off with like one dry sock that I have in a bag. And I'm like, okay, I just have to get totally naked and a little bit dry. And then I'll get this all these brand new layers on. And I was like, okay, how do I do that? I'm going to have to close the toilet seat to the toilet. And this is no good, but I'm going to have to do it. So I sat down on it and I'm drying my feet. And I slip my pants off of my butt. And then I sit back down on the closed toilet seat which has a tiny bit of a grade downward at the door, and I shot my goddamn body at the door of the Porta John so fast my bare ass went get, and then I was squatting nude on the floor of a Porta John.
Did you bang into the door?
You were talking to Brent when I slammed my body into the door. Oh God! The whole thing shook.
I wish I had heard.
I can't believe you didn't, because then I was literally sockless, shoeless, and nude on the floor of the Porta John. This thing shot me out of this lid like a cannon, and then I was just like, I don't want this to be more pitiful than it is right now.
Did it feel pitiful or funny?
It felt pretty pitiful.
Did it feel pitiful?
It's funny now, but in the moment it was just like, no.
Oh, you're like, I
just want to sit.
This will answer this. How long did you stay in the squatted position?
Almost not. I popped right back up.
Okay. Well, that's not that pitiful.
No, it's not. So I covered the seat.
True pitiful would be having a second to be like,
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I took my wet clothes and I covered the toilet seat with them so that I could sit down on it with my bare ass without getting shot off of it.
Good.
I got totally dry, which I'm sure you thought took too long. And I came back out. We realized then that we had accidentally chucked One of the 3 final maps.
There was a total of 15, 16 maps, and after I was done with one, I was folding them up and stashing them away places because just tracking maps is a lot, and especially the rootstock did double-sided maps, which I actually think is great for paper conservation purposes. I do think it would have been beneficial and maybe something to consider for future races if it doesn't explode anybody's brains, not have the sequential maps on the front and back, so that you could go from the front of one to the front of another one to the back of the first one and to the back of the second one. But anyways, we had come back to a map that we needed, and although I should say this is after we had put the pack raft and changed our clothes and everything.
We were ready to roll.
It was like, okay, I'm just gotta route out this last stage because I was writing out the course stage by stage because I really didn't want to do all of the stages right when we got the map, because I was like, hey, we might get to this last part and it doesn't matter, and I will have just spent time doing things that we don't have time for because we're just not that fast yet. So really it comes down to, most of the time it comes down to like what's the bare minimum
for finishing.
But it was raining and I was like trying to like sort it out, and like I was like, oh, I'm missing a map. Shoot. And I went and kind of creeped on somebody else and was like, hey, I hope you don't mind. I'm just going to like look at your map as you write out your course
that's what
too.
you're doing. Okay.
And he was like, yeah, we're just going to like go back out the way we came in, and we're going to do that same hill that we just came down, only we have to go up it, which is going to kind of be a bear. And then we'll keep going straight past where you turned off before. And I was like,
yeah. That still couldn't make sense in tired brain.
Yeah.
So I went over to what I'm assuming is still rootstock. I think. It's two women and a man who were looking super pro. So that's got to be rootstock, I'm assuming. But I was like, hi, do you guys have an extra copy?
Rootstock came in like at like 35 hours.
Okay, so it wasn't them. It was another co-ed team who was super, super pro looking. But they were gracious enough to give us their extra map 13.
Also, it occurs to me, you thought this was Team Rootstock, and then you identified the wrong person at the
later.
finish line.
I thanked the wrong guy.
You have no idea who gave us a map.
Ghosts.
Thanks, Ghost, for map 13.
Yeah, I'm amazing. I was so
but you
tired.
got it, which was great.
I got it. So we got the map, and we headed out back on. So nice to not have a backpack that weighed 50 fucking pounds.
Oh, because we were like carrying wet shit with us for so much. Like, you know, from after stage 1, we were carrying all of our wet clothes and stuff from stage 1 when we were biking on stage 2, and then we were Lauren was carrying a pack raft, and I was carrying the PFDs.
So much garbage, and so there's almost nothing left in my bag at the end.
Yeah, it was like our mandatory gear.
Yeah.
And half a liter of water and some food.
I really enjoyed eating all of my remaining food servings in the last 12 miles of this race.
Yes, very
I think
nice.
I ate like 4 servings of Doritos, 3 things of M&Ms, and 2 things of gummy bears in the last 12 miles.
I think I had 8 fruit snacks over the whole race.
I also turned around on this bear of a 1 mile, 15% grade up climb to say, Annie, do you want any strawberry banana goo? And I believe you told me I could go straight to hell.
I think I said, fuck you. I think I said you can go right the fuck off.
Yeah. That made me laugh really hard.
Yeah.
So we matched back up briefly with Fragile Flowers, who was also ascending the climb on foot with us.
And learned of their race strategy, which was the right move because they crushed us. So on the earlier stage where you could do between 4 and 16 miles, depending on how many optional checkpoints you did, they focused on getting all the checkpoints on that trekking stage, which was the right move because, frankly, there was more checkpoints in the trekking stage than there was on the optional pack rafting stage. Yes. So they had prepared to pack raft and everything, and then when looking at the checkpoint layout, it made more sense to focus on the optional trekking points than the pack raft points, which was genius. And it's that kind of stuff where, again, my brain says like, oh, like I'm doing the thing that I'm supposed to, which is do all the stages, or like, hey, I'm going to stay on this line that goes to the next point, even though it's like, hey, cut the switch back, or like, hey, kick out to the road, you ding dong.
Must go straight.
I'm just not there. I don't have that next layer of reasoning built out yet, but so it was cool to see Fragile Flowers again, and for Olga to poke fun at me and for me to say thanks for the save in the middle of the night, because she definitely did, because otherwise I don't think I would have thought to double check it, because brains.
Yeah. She was like, oh, here comes the stubborn one. And I was like, oh, I think we know somebody else who's a female adventure racer.
I learned it from watching you, Olga.
So it was raining really hard at this point.
Yep, but we were with other people again, and you could definitely feel it was a home stretch, and not in the way that like sometimes you're like, oh, it's in the home stretch, and then you're like, oh, but I actually have 2 more hours.
Yeah, because the last time we did a 12-mile bike finish, it took us 4 to 5 hours.
Yeah, it was really long.
And this took us like an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah, it was great. So we're like climbing up a hill with other teams, and then we got to kind of finish solo, but like the rain did pick up. We did a couple of dirt road descents with just like rain just like blasting our eyeballs.
We had no glasses on.
I essentially was descending with my eyes closed.
I was too. And just covered in like indelible oil from the road.
Yeah, was it from the road or our bikes? It must have been the road.
Yeah, the road. But we had dirt freckles, and we were sleepy peepees, and we weren't sure when the next... Oh, Annie had a moment where she wasn't sure if the final turn was the right turn.
Yeah, just one of those things, because you're like, one of my greatest fears as a navigator is just to be like, to do a ding-dong move at the end. And I was like, okay, like we should be like turning and getting to Ski Sawmill to finish like at any point. Get ready, Lauren. It's going to rock your mind. Get ready. And then I was like, wait a second. Fuck balls. Are we on the wrong road? Like, uh-oh. I just killed my own finisher boner.
I know from the last adventure race not to get excited because you might have 13 miles left when you first get excited. So I was just like, no matter what you say, I'm going to tell myself I have 2 hours left.
And then I was like, oh, okay, here's the finish.
So we kind of didn't get as excited because usually I have like bum ba 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 ba, and like the tears well up, and I'm like, we're the strongest women in the world.
I know, and I was like super stoked that I would finally get to be able to be like, Lauren,
guess what?
Look,
and we were just like, oh, finish. We're like, oh, there's the farmhouse. We're like, I guess we're done.
We came into the finish. People were hanging out waiting for the pizza, and we cheered when we came in, and that felt good. And for some reason, like, we just killed our own finisher boners. This is so weird.
Not having a physical finishing line and also not knowing that the finish was upon us kind of made it feel like, yeah, yay.
This sounds like such an anticlimactic.
I know,
like, finish,
I know.
But like, and to be clear, there was nothing that was a bummer. It's just we had somehow just like short circuited our brains at the end. Mm-hmm. We should consider that it was. We're making this. Oh well, this is like a real portrayal of what happened. So we ended up finishing in a time of like 34 hours and 15 minutes. You know what else?
What?
This was also the first time, and it was done on purpose by me. This is the first time we weren't redlining to the finish.
Thank God.
I didn't even consider that, though, but maybe that was part of why we were like, oh, hey,
that's
we didn't
totally
have to,
it. That's totally it. Because usually it's like a fight to the death, and you made it, and so the joy is like, we squeaked it. We made it. But we were like, well, we did it. We really fucking did it. Like, we were ready to finish, and we did the finish at the right time.
It went according to plan. That's exactly why. Because at Shenandoah, we had 6 minutes until the cutoff.
Which is terrifying.
Before that, I mean, really the last thing we did was Nitro Gain. Nitro Gain we ran, or not Nitro Gain,
12
Main
hours.
Rouge Gain.
And
we ran the hardest that we had ever run to finish that
8-minute miles
road
on trail.
Like we were sprinting our brain. Like that's like the fastest I've ever run.
We do this every time. Also, no sleep.
Yes. Also, no sleep. Like.
You're kind of famous for
Nationals,
this.
we weren't like butt up against, but we were pretty close. And we bombed that descent like lunatics. So that's why we had a planned, controlled finish, and I think because we didn't have to peel our own skin off to finish.
It wasn't as juicy. So we're just kind of like, we did it. We're strong. We knew we could, and we did.
And that also contributed to like general feelings about the race. So like Shenandoah had, again, I just finished and was like, wow, like I've gone through a time with my emotions on this race. And after Two Rivers, after this race, I just felt so competent.
Me too.
And strong.
Me too. And just excited to get better at it.
Yeah. Yeah, and excited to get better at it. I felt like we did this thing.
Yeah, me
as
too.
Two powerful women adapting to complex, difficult environment. Like, it was a cold, wet, technical course involving disciplines we'd never done before with the pack raft. And having this was Lauren's longest ever race.
Yeah, ever.
Like, time distance wise. Like,
ever.
we ended up with over 100 miles between biking and trekking. There was a lot of trekking. There was more miles on foot than I've been doing in my training for a long time. I have been working hard to get better at climbing on the bike, and you could see that show up in the success of the race.
Definitely.
Like, you overcame having food poisoning all week and are still, like, rocking, like, a really super high fitness level. Like, you descended some crazy rocky stuff, like, that is a thing that freaks you out a little bit, but you did it like a boss. While, again, we didn't emphasize this on the descent. We had 8-foot clearance with our oars with, like,
I forgot. Yeah, we also descended that scary death chute with the pack raft on.
Yeah, so there was times that we just had to, like, log roll under stuff.
You
or
can
just
do
like
really hard things.
blast through tree. Like,
yeah.
So we just had all these things where it was like, I don't know if we can do this, but I feel capable of figuring out how to do it.
Yeah. So we finished. I ate half of a pizza in one breath and chugged some NA beer, hallucinated in the van for a while waiting for the award ceremony. We were really stoked to be in a race where there were more female teams than there were podium spots.
Yeah.
And also...
And it was a tight race. So,
it was.
So Fragile Flowers blew it out because, again, their race strategy was the way to go. Team Semi-Navi Savvy got second. And yours truly,
toot toot,
got third.
Woohoo!
And we beat out Flying Squirrels, so our team of Stephanie Ross and Karen Clark, which I feel stoked about because that was all
they are
four
our
teams
mentors.
were legit.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing.
Yeah.
A couple shout outs to some folks at the finish there. Team Visibility, their first win as a co-ed team.
Go Chip and Andrea.
Really amazing work. And also congrats on not getting off your bike and that insane climb. We're very proud of you. That was awesome. Also, huge shout out to Team We Don't Quit.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can't believe we've gone this whole episode without mentioning them, but we talked to them a bit at check-in. I finally get to meet my dear friend Kofi in person. So Kofi, so nice to physically touch you.
Yeah.
And his beautiful wife, Sophia, doing the event 5 months pregnant.
When I think about how hard this was for me and what a limiting experience it was for me, and then I think about having a baby with me, I just can't imagine. So, like, just in awe.
And they picked up 2 additional people that they, raced with them the whole time. Also, we mentioned this after Team Shenandoah, but they are racing in conjunction with Team Tiki to raise awareness to Black maternity health. I encourage you to look up Team Tiki or We Don't Quit on Instagram, and there's a link to donate to that cause as well, which I highly encourage you to do. And it was really cool to see We Don't Quit out there in addition to just meeting y'all in person finally.
Very cool.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
to Rootstock Racing, so Abby and Brent, there was just a lot of really admirable things about how y'all put on this race. So this race was originally meant to be held in 2020 as a 5-year celebration of Rootstock Racing's existence. And you could tell, I felt like I was going to Brent's favorite spots. It felt like somebody being like, hey, if you're in this area and you want to see the really cool stuff,
here's what's beloved to me.
Here's where you should go.
Right.
It's going to be hard to get to, but it'll be pretty cool.
It was beautiful, technical. It was novel, interesting, and we really enjoyed it. Difficult, but also really well staffed. The logistics were glorious.
So well organized. And I could tell how well organized it was because I never thought once about the race organization.
Yeah, really, really made it feel effortless. So thank you so much.
And also, I don't know how Brent was at every TA and how
he's 4 people.
I am
we.
I am we.
I am us.
And Abby, y'all were everywhere with your kiddos.
That happened.
It was it was just incredible from beginning to end.
Yeah.
Even though there was times where we were lonely and separated from other racers, I never felt separated from the RDs, which was just wild.
I always felt close to you.
Yes.
Well, so thank you again for a beautiful and exciting and insanely tough race.
Look forward to another Rootstock race.
And until next time,
We are
Barf Barf.